Paltrocast.
Frank, Raz, pleasure to be speaking with you both. First, we'll throw it to Raz and say, how are you? And how does it feel to be asked the same questions over and over and over again by a bunch of
I
writers?
enjoy it because sometimes I don't say it good the first time, so it gives me time to do it better. I get a do-over.
Got it. Now, how did you first encounter Frank?
Frank, I have to recall this correctly, and I have a weird memory, so it's like his mind and the truth, and his is probably closer to the truth. I believe I feel like it was Priest or somebody that hooked me up with Frank to go do the show, do the G4, the thing. So I went, and I know I came with my friend Flip, who helped me. He produced on my first album, and I went. And I was a big fan. I watched those G4. I watched that channel because I'm a nerd. I like video games and anime and all that. So
Sure.
yeah, I went and we just hit it off. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know it was gonna be a documentary. I thought it was just more like a segment on some hip hop rap, talk some crap and keep it pushing.
Frank, credit to you. Can we start with the compliments, or are you maxed out for the day?
It's all good, man. Whatever. It's all good.
Okay, so I don't think most people know the many lives that you live and have lived. So, for example, I would think that not a lot of people seeing this know, well, that's the guy from the Street Walking Cheetahs. That's the guy who has the Eddie Spaghetti stuff. So there's that chapter. Then it comes to the stuff that you've directed that's not music related. And then we have a documentary on hip hop. Now, where does your appreciation of hip hop come from versus your rock roots?
Well, I don't really think they're separate. I just think I appreciate music, and just when I first got into music, I was listening to like LA rock radio. So I was kind of listening to like rock and roll and like Devo and Joan Jett and the Go-Go's and all that like early 80s, late 70s kind of stuff you might hear on K-Rock or KMET or KLOS. If you remember Ras Kass, you're an LA kid like me. And that's what I was listening to. And really maybe other than like Run DMC and Fresh Prince and Fat Boys, because that stuff was like crossover stuff that you would see on early MTV. So I knew that stuff. And I mean, everyone loved Run DMC, but I was kind of a rock and roll kid until I first heard, Ice-T and NWA and Public Enemy. And by that point, I just thought it was so punk rock, that music, and it really, it just connected with me. So a lot of my storytelling as a documentary filmmaker over these years is just that I love music. And so like the first film I worked on, I produced a story about a heavy metal artist, that guy Thor. He's like a gladiator metal guy, and we did this movie called I Am Thor, and it's just about this guy with a weird dream, just out there persevering, and just life is just telling him, no, what are you doing? Why would you do this? This is such a dumb idea. And he's like, no, gladiator metal is right around the corner. And he truly believes it, and he just keeps on pressing. And like, there's something, the artist in me just goes like, I love that so much. I love these underdog stories. And so when it came to hip hop, like one thing that I just loved about hip hop was all these improvisational freestyle scene going on. Sometimes you'd see guys go on the radio, like Sway and Tech and stuff, and like freestyle, or you'd be like at a show and like maybe there'd be a moment where there'd be some freestyling, or like just in the parking lot. And so I just got very fascinated with all these little subsets of music. But to me, it wasn't about rock or rap or punk or metal. It's just music. And especially when I was a kid, generally any music that my parents seemed to hate was all right by me. So, you know what I mean? Like they hated Public Enemy as much as they hated Slayer. So like I just considered it all in the same bracket. You know what I mean?
So your family, or rather your parents, hated the Judgment Night.
No. My parents were actually super cool in general.
That was a bad joke, Frank. I was just making a rock rap joke on the Judgment Night soundtrack.
No, but I'm saying like my parents were super cool with music, and they were rock and roll people, and that's kind of how I got turned on to it. But it was like, but like, when you're turning like people that came up in the 60s and 70s on like classic rock and classic R&B, and then you're playing them like Slayer and NWA and like some really alternative shit, they're just like, listen, son, I like rock and roll, but hold on. You know what I mean? Right. And so I love that. Anything that pissed off anyone older than me, I was very excited about.
Well, Raz, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you because
Thank
I'm a
you.
fan of your music beyond your participation in this documentary. I think that Ghetto Fabulous, one of the most underrated singles ever,
Thank
to
you.
say the least.
Yeah.
The guests on that, it's the most A-list track possible that nobody talks about. So I'm going to have a question or two after this.
Yeah, no worries.
But in terms of freestyle, were you able to freestyle rap early on, or was that a skill that you had to work on?
It's a skill set. It's like anything. Some people have an aptitude because they have great memory. I don't necessarily have a great memory, so I had to train it. So it's just something that, when you're a kid, I was going out really early, like probably way earlier than my parents should have. Well, my mother should have let me. But I negotiated a deal because I liked the culture, but I didn't want to rap. I was just dancing, but I was going to like Water in the Bush. You would know what I'm talking about, Water in the Bush. So these are like 21 clubs, 21-year-old clubs in Hollywood. And I would see like Ice-T and Everlast and just all these people and people I looked up to, band, but like all these legendary people in the club. And I'm like a kid. I was probably like, honestly, I was like 14, 15 at the most with this fake ID from my homeboy Eric Davis. So anyway, long story short, I was just inspired by that. I just watching them. I was more of the fan that wanted to dance to the music. And then I got inspired by KRS-One. I would say he's my foundational hero. And then I started trying to rap, and you'd be riding in the car and whatever your favorite song was, and then we play it, and somebody's smoking some weed. I wasn't a big smoker, but they probably passing a blunt. We're driving where we're going, and then we're rapping, and that's kind of where the freestyle starts coming from.
All the rappers you just mentioned are East Coast people that left the East Coast, or at least left where they grew up. Everlast, Long Island guy that nobody talks about being a Long Island guy. Ice-T from New Jersey.
I never even knew that. I sat with him. He
And
covers that one up. He's repping this. Yes.
KRS-One lives in Studio City now, and Chuck D's out in like Ventura, Santa Barbara.
Right.
I feel like a lot of guys from the East Coast like grew up in cold weather, and it's the second they could afford
100%.
they're just like, listen, man, I just want to be around sunshine.
They
it's not
talk
about like
all the crap they want to, but at the end of the day, they are like, I'm getting over here with this. Well, Biggie said it. Going back to Cali strictly for the weather, women, and the weed, sticky green. So they come over here. They should. It's nice, I like some New Yorkers.
I'll tell you one thing though that you just said, Raz, that just connecting what you were saying is that like that's something that I was that kid too, meaning like I got a fake ID and I started going to clubs and checking out. At first it was heavy metal and punk rock, and then it was hip hop, but like going to clubs I couldn't get into with access I shouldn't have had, and like kind of like befriending people and talking my way. And like that was sort of my early entry into not just music, but even just sort of showbiz and just the idea of like, hey, there's a backstage over here, and that's the dude who's in charge, but that guy seems to really be running shit. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when you're a little kid and you're like so into something, or you're so into a scene that you just push your way through,
right?
Like, that's why 35 years later we're both still doing this.
Yeah, man. And I just wanted to, you were extremely eloquent explaining like, loving music. Like we've created these boundaries and categories. Rock, a lot of Black people in that genre. You know what I'm saying? And so we start letting corporations decide, oh, this is Black or this is that. It's just music, you know what I'm saying? And so it can resonate to anybody. It's supposed to. And so I love the way that Frank says like it was punk rock, like NWA was it's rebel music. It's all counterculture music to a certain degree, and kind of against the man or against the establishment, and
which
everybody has a way to express that.
Yeah, which can mean different things to different people, because everyone is, has an enemy. You know what I mean? Like, so like,
even if it's just the young against, like, we don't want to do it your way. The old guys, we like, my parents, I can quote my fathers when I played them a rap song that I liked. And, or maybe said I wanted to rap or something. I just, my dad's a pretty, he's the Marine who became the LAPD officer, and I remember his quote. It's like, oh, that's just a fad. That won't last. And I remember I said, "Rapper never die," and I'm like, 13 or whatever. So yeah, it's that disconnect. And so my part of my rebellion was like proving to him like rap is dope. You know, or I probably either I said it was fresh. I don't even think dope was in the vernacular yet. I was like, it's fresh. Rap is fresh. So yeah, man.
I have a random one, and you two, as LA people, can help confirm or deny this. I think that one of the most unsung heroes in the evolution of LA hip hop is David Faustino, aka Bud Bundy from Married with Children.
My brother.
Am I right or wrong?
He's up, man. Bud really lived this culture, man. And I didn't know him back then. I didn't know him, but like, you know, being a kid watching the show. But then he started throwing ballistics. So it was a few times I got to go to his club. And so even before, also, what's his name? David Austin Green. Because they were like the beginning of the glue between the LA kids meeting like the Hollywood and Valley kids. They do
I think Scott Conn was also in that group.
Well, Scott Conn, Alchemist, they were, you know, that's the Beverly Hills kids. You know what I'm saying? And so they were kind of the glue that threw parties, because the other parties prior to that were those kids having to walk into our world. All the clubs were still in Hollywood, but they were kind of in our world. And that was some of the ones. And they were up, you know what I'm saying? Like David Faustino and David Austin Green, you know what I'm saying? They like, we saw them on TV, you know what I'm saying? So, and they were throwing real authentic hip hop parties, and like bopper, we called it bopper club. Well, they called us boppers, like teeny boppers. So, you know, a lot of those clubs were like 18, and then you couldn't be older than 25 or something like that. Yeah, it was awesome. It was a great era.
Agreed, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, my brother was an actor who went to Beverly Hills High School, Brecken Meyer, and he was a bit of a 90s icon at that time. I don't know that he was rolling deep into that party scene just because he was never like a party guy. But yeah, I mean, I for sure remember that shit, man. But I remember back then that there was a promoter named Bigga B. You remember Bigga B?
Rest in peace.
Yeah, Bigga B used to do a show.
Unity.
Called Unity.
That was my first show ever. I got my first show at like a pay. Like, go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, dude. Like, I saw so much great shit at this club called, and it had a few different spots because like
they kept moving.
Yeah, at one point I think it was at the Roxbury, and then it was somewhere else. But it ended up, the last show I saw there was at the Palace, you know, which then became the Avalon. And the last show I saw there was when I was working, because I was the publicist for Sons of Man when they first put out that first album. So Sons of Man, Law of the Dark Man, Militia. You know, with Miss Toy, a few other groups, all
Mr.
on
Tan, yeah,
Mr. Tan and Lord G, that whole crew, all were doing this show. But then before that, I saw the Coup on the Genocide and Juice tour there. I saw KRS-One there. I saw Spice One there. I saw Bushwick Bill there solo. I saw the Click there.
Yeah,
like
man.
Some crazy ass shit, dude. He was doing great shows. So like LA had a lot of these little, you know, scenes and promoters popping, doing, and then of course, you know, then you had like Ice-T at that time was like woodshedding body count. And so like around these hip hop and metal clubs, Ice-T was doing shows like where he would just do metal. Like I saw the 4th body count show ever, I think. Like it was so early that when they opened up with that song, There Goes the Neighborhood, the band fucked it up and I stopped them and was like, listen, everyone start this song over. That is not the way. Like it was like, you know, they were almost rehearsing. And then
he was doing that decades before, sorry to cut you off, he was doing that decades before Corey Feldman was.
Oh yeah, he was he's way before Corey or any of those groundbreaking artists.
Yeah, those legends.
Those legends like Corey. I mean, but I will tell you this, dude. When Ice-T first came out with Body Count, there was nothing fucking like that in the world, because like it was sort of NWA and that they just looked like, you know, I mean, they literally came out in prison clothes. But then in the background, they had S1W dudes. But the time that I saw them, it was not, they had actual Uzis. Like they were literally walked out with Uzis. Like the back line of dudes had Uzis. And then the band was in prison clothes. And then Ice-T came out. And then after he stopped the band and they started again, he jumped right into my friend and me and just toppled us. And I was like, fuck, dude, like punk rock and metal and hip hop, like it's all the fucking same thing. You know what I mean? So that's going back to your original question 25 minutes ago.
Well,
That's
one
what
que-
this is all birthed out of, is just this love for music. It's not hip hop rock. It's just like great music and these subsections and all these subgenres of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so thank you, David Faustino. And
Thank you.
the last question that goes to both of you.
By the way, you're the only person I've ever seen thrown David Faustino into the like real architects of hip hop conversation. So props to you for that.
Look, man, I'm giving David his props. That is my bro, man.
Yeah.
Like,
All this came up when I was interviewing Damon Elliott a couple days ago. Dionne Warwick's son, who's a big producer, and he was talking about his early days and David Faustino. And I went, wait a second, he had that hip hop club that a lot of people, that was their first gig or that was their first exposure to hip hop. So then you go, he was on one of the biggest sitcoms at the time.
Hey, where was I didn't know that club. Where was it held? Like, where was that held?
I can't remember the
What's the venue?
I
Was
don't
it like
remember
Hollywood or Beverly Hills?
It was
like,
it was Hollywood. It was definitely Hollywood. It was called Ballistics.
I don't remember that
a
spot.
few times because the other one was green.
I remember that David Faustino had a
Right,
club, but I never
right.
went there. And I'm wondering
I
now, like,
went.
what...
It was dope. It was kind of it was the Walk This Way video, like Run DMC and you know and Aerosmith.
Oh, like it had a professional stage like that?
No, I'm
like...
just saying, like those worlds like kicked indoors, and it's like all these little blonde chicks. And all these little fucking brown boys. Like, I've never met you before. Yeah, it was awesome.
The hair metal scene, the Beverly Hills 90210 scene, the hip hop
gangbangers,
the gangbangers, all just like
the taggers, and like everybody started up like, oh, you guys are cool.
Well, the next documentary, Frank, will be about Faustino.
I'm telling you, I'm thinking about this right now. I'm like, the whole Beverly Hills scene meets hip hop scene is kind of like a weird, interesting subtext that you don't hear about like in West Coast hip hop. You know what I mean?
Well, the one question for each of you before I let you go. Now, Raz, I mentioned before the Ghetto Fabulous video, which has you and Ice-T, I think, is in it for a little.
Well, Ice is there. He's the
Dre, etc.
Yeah, Dr. Dre, Mac 10, Battle Cat, a lot of people. Yeah.
So my question related to all that is hip hop history. Basically, anytime there's a video, you look and there's a bunch of people in the background, you go, okay, at least 5 of them had a record deal. So, for example, when you're looking at Rob Bass, you know, the It Takes Two video, you're like, there's Biz Markie, you know, that kind of a thing. Were any people in the background of the Ghetto Fabulous video later signed and known?
A lot of those people, some all from the Eye, was there, which was Mac 10's group.
I saw them recently in concert at the G-Funk Festival in LA a few months back. They were great.
Yeah, they're great. They
still great.
They had some dope records. The Comrades, KK and them were there, Second to None. It was all kind of people, like literally like the only people that kind of didn't show up was just because they were out of town was Dog Snoop. So Dog and them weren't there, and Exhibit, he was gone somewhere. But yeah, like we kind of had the whole West Coast. That's like the first time I had ever thought like, oh wow, I might do well. Like I was like, oh, everybody showed up and supported, and it was kind of that star-studded thing. And so yeah, a lot of those people went on. I mean, you never know. Kendrick Lamar might have been in that thing. He might have just been a little dusty dude walking around, him and Absol, who you never know.
So following up on that, before I throw it to Frank, where should we be looking for you, or what's coming up besides promoting Freestyle 101 hip hop history?
Me or Frank?
You rather.
Oh, me. Oh, my bad. So we're dropping. I got to talk to Frank about this. So we're dropping a record in a week or so. I'm dropping a record called 50 for 50. So it's 50 bars for 50 years of hip hop. And I partnered with Patchwork Studios, which was one of the most legendary studios, you know, in hip hop and especially a mainstay of the South, and got the co-sign from Organized Noise, who produced Two Dope Boys in the Cadillac for Outkast. I rhyme over that, and we shot a video and everything. So we dropping that because nobody's really created a theme record for what we're experiencing. So that's my job. So we just kind of nailed it. It's gonna be crazy.
Got it. Frank, the last word. Where can we be looking for you that we're allowed to? Because I know there's 1,000 projects going on, but probably 999 are under embargo right now.
Right. Well, as far as the movie goes, you can catch it on Amazon Prime and Google Play and YouTube Movies, or you can just go to freestyle101movie.com, and that's sort of the hub of all the stuff. And we're on all the social medias. It's Freestyle 101 Hip Hop History. And then as far as my music stuff goes, just go to thefrankmeyer.com, MEYER, and that's sort of got like my music and my film and just, you know, all the my books and just all the different stuff that I do.
Paltrocast.